Hello! We're back with Isabel Grace Osterberg, and we are going to do chapter 4. We celebrated her 100th birthday on June 10th of this year. She was born June 10th of 1920 and turned 100 June 10th of 2020. So our last chapter before her 100th day discussion and celebration was up to high school. So now we're going to start off with after high school. First of all, how old were you when you graduated high school?
I graduated from the Hollywood Theater. That's where all the graduates from Southwestern did. Went across the Hollywood Theater, big deal. When I was 16.
Mm.
It was probably a polio epidemic, and so instead of graduating in June, like usual, we graduated in May, the 2nd of May, and so at that time I was only 16, but I graduated at Ruthie for Langenap, and they were real estate dealers, and they opened a new office on Grand River, and she asked me if I wanted to work there. She'd give me a job, and I told her yes, and so I went, and I was there a couple weeks or 3, and first thing I knew, the salesmen were pinching and just being a little bit too forward for me when I was 16. So I told her, I said, I can't run around the desk from the salesman. And she said, well, why don't you quit and go someplace else? So that I did. I quit the job, and I was always fascinated with the J.L. Hudson Company, and I thought I'd like to work there. So I went there, and I got a job as a contingent on in the stock, marking the new merchandise that came in, and so I worked. Well, from the main floor through 16, I think, was selling floors, and then 17 on up was stock. And I worked on every floor, in all 4 basements. Basement 1 and 2 was selling merchandise, and basement number 3 and 4 were stock rooms. And I worked in every department they had there, which was a meaning of the word contingent. Wherever they sent me, and my future brother-in-law Harold worked in the stock room, selling floor of bedding, and my future sister-in-law Myrtle worked in the employment part, and my future brother-in-law was not even married to Myrtle at that time. He was a buyer in china and glass and that sort of thing. This 16th floor. And let's see. I worked in hosiery. Oh God, I hated the hosiery because they were the old-fashioned, but they were new at that time. But there was no such thing as pantyhose, and I worked in silk stockings, and which were very expensive. And then
Was there nylon at the time?
Hmm?
Was there any nylon at the time?
Any what?
Nylon.
Oh no.
So all the stockings were made out of silk?
Either the silk or rayon.
Silk or rayon. Okay.
Rayon, and rayons were terrible because they didn't stick to your leg at all. And make your ankles real big.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't stick to your leg at all. But that's what you used to wear. They had seams up the back. All of them did. Rayons and very few silk stockings were very expensive. And rayons and
Do you remember how much they were?
I don't remember, but at that time, when you consider that the salaries of the people who worked at J.L. Hudson was $1 a day, so you know that the merchandise was very expensive. To what your salaries were.
Mm-hmm.
Salaries were
$1 a day.
$1 a day.
Wow.
So I worked 6 days a week, and I made $6, and I got 3 $2 bills. They always paid us in cash, and I got 3 $2 bills, and $6 for six days. That's what I made.
Wow.
And when I retired from there and get married, I was up to $7.
Woo!
Yeah, I made $7 a day, and
$7 a week.
And Bert made $12.
$7 a week, or $7
a week.
A week.
$1 a day. Well, then $1. But when I made $6 for 6 days, it was easy to stay $1 a day. But when I made $7 for the 6 days, I had an extra $1. Bert made $12. He was a sack boy. And the men always made more money than women.
Wow.
This one of those things. And I worked at all the different departments, but the infants department was run by Molly Levine, and she was set that she was going to make a love connection between Bert and I. And she kept telling me, when he comes back to work, you're going to be just 40. So kind and so sweet and so handsome and everything. And sure enough, when he came, he was all those things.
Mm.
He really was. And so Wolf was in charge of all the stock, boys and girls, and she used to say that she, no love connection. You here to work and work only. So everywhere we go, Miss Wolf would be there. We go, like at our lunch hour, we'd go in the stairwells. She'd go from one floor to the other, walk in the stairs. She was always there. We go up on the music floor, where they saw the pianos and that, and they had real comfortable couches in the hall. Then these pianos and things were like in rooms, and so we'd meet there, and she'd be, first thing you know, she was walking down the aisle for the elevator to I don't know where she was going, but she was turned up on the 14th floor over and over again. So we had a lot of trouble. And we go in the lunchroom, and I would eat, make, my grandmother gave me a little money so I could eat at the cafeteria. And Bert always brought us lunch. Same thing every day, a peanut butter sandwich and a banana. And I had him thoroughly convinced that I thought the peanut butter sandwiches were the end all. Just loved them. And so once we get there, I'd eat his lunch, and he'd eat mine, and I'd bought. We did that over and over again until Ms. Wolf came and said, you two are having lunch together almost every day. And so then we went across the street to Kriski's, a dime store, and Bert would get oysters, and I told him I said I can't eat oysters because they're all gooey, and he said, no, they're not. They're nice and crisp and everything. And so I told him, I said, well, you cut one and open. So he cut one open, and all this slime came out, And he said, oh my goodness. So he didn't eat any more oysters. Oh, dear. But anyway, that's when I first met Bert, and I come home for dinner and bring him home with me a couple of times a week, and I would go with Mom and help her cook dinner, and Bert would sit and talk to Dad, and there's so many things, so many tales. Bert had no car, and he hadn't driven very often, only just when a friend would let him drive. And so my dad's let him use the car, because he and I would walk to the show, and there was none near. It was, a good mile at least. And so Dad would, especially in cold weather, Dad would let Bert drive. He said to Bert, drive me around the block and let me see how you drive. And he drove around the block, and he stopped and started and stopped and started and had an awful time getting around the block. And Dad says, well, if you're just going to go to the show and come back, and that's it. So he let us use the car. And then we got so that we wanted to go to Belle Isle. So Bert would pull the speedometer plug out so Dad would know that we didn't just go to the show. And my dad very, very calmly said, by the way, he says, when you pull the plug out of the speedometer, be sure push it back in again. Because I keep track of my mileage and my gasoline. And I said, oh, okay, okay, Dad. And nothing more was said about it, but that's what happened. And when we lived on Beard, and we lived at like the middle of the house of the short block. It was a little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But there were like 9 houses, and then an apartment building on the corner, on this corner, and we just was something I was going to say to that awful man. Oh, so there was an alley behind the 10 houses, and then one went straight up, and then the same treatment on Waterman. So we will always go on and come right down, and we could go in the garage, but much easier than this short thing, because you had to turn the car to go in. And this one time, he's driving up right, very lousy driver, and I should know. And he was, Dad had a workbench, and Bert hit the workbench. And I had I said, you were hit the workbench. He said, yeah, I know I did, but it's so.
Your dad came out and said what?
And the next morning, Dad came to me and he said, what happened to you last night? I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, he said the garage is knocked off of the roof. He said, you stand in the garage and you see daylight.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, told him what happened, and he said, oh, okay. So you got to crew together and help him push the front of the garage back under the roof. Oh, my dad was so patient. He was so patient.
Wow.
Anyway, I met him in 37.
At Hudson's, at jail Hudson's.
And
where was Hudson's located?
In 41.
Oh wow. Where was Hudson's located in Detroit?
Mm-hmm.
Where was Hudson's located in Detroit?
Oh yeah, Hudson's was at Woodward, and I don't just
Woodward and the Boulevard, isn't it?
No.
No?
not that far.
Woodward and Campus Martius. Okay.
Mhm.
So you met him in 1938 working at jail Hudson's, and then you got married in 1941.
1941. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Got married in 41.
Did you work together that whole time at Hudson's while you were dating?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was hard to date when Miss Wolf was everywhere. Now, Bert worked for Mr. X, and he never said nothing. But Miss Wolf was always, and she was Miss, M-I-S-S, Miss Wolf. She was everywhere. She was everywhere.
That's really cool.
And sometimes my dad when Bert would come over, Dad would drive him to Livernois, and then he'd take the Livernois bus.
Where did Bert live?
Huh?
Where did Bert live?
He lived on Mark Twain. It was well, when we drove over there. We went down to Green and then to Verner, and then took Verner all the way up to 6 Mile, and then went out 6 Mile until we came to Mark Twain. It wasn't very far.
That's what I was going to say. That's the west side. So he worked all the way downtown He worked all the way downtown, and he lived on the west side of Detroit.
Yeah.
Wow. When you said Mark Twain, I thought
He didn't have a car. So he just took the bus all the way to work.
wow.
And at that time, my father-in-law was drinking pretty heavily. And when he drank, he was very mean. He was a mean drunk. They're happy drunks and mean drunks.
Yes.
And so that
Father-in-law.
if he was giving my mother-in-law a hard time, Bert would go right home to work to be with her, just in case. And finally, she said to him, John, either you get out or you stop drinking. And she brought her minister over, and they talked to him for a long time. Bert told me, I, of course, wasn't there, and a long time. And my father, he cried, and he was very repentant, and he changed like I have never seen anybody change
Wow.
that way before. He became very religious, and he stopped drinking, and he did everything my mother-in-law wanted. He worked for Miller Homes and did all the finishing in the kitchen, cupboards and that. He was called a finishing carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
Did all the finishing work, baseboards and all stuff like that. But
Very cool.
anyway, that's of course the war was going on, and we weren't in it yet. I don't know if we were in it yet, but it could happen. And my brother-in-law Philip, he worked for Colonial Brooch Company, and I don't know what a brooch was or anything, but they filed them and made them for airplanes. And so he said they were hiring, so both Harold and Bert went to work, apply for workmen, got the jobs, and they were knee deep in war work the whole long time. And they Bert worked 12, 15 hours a day, and
Do you remember the year?
well, right after we were married,
So we're now in like 1941.
41.
Okay, I'm gonna pause you here, and then we're gonna talk about next time. We're gonna talk about your wedding day and your marriage.
Okay.
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 So signing off for now, everyone. We'll see you for chapter 5. Thank you so much.